welcome to another episode of Nerd Age, where we discuss everything nerdy. My name is Mick, and with me, as always, are my co-hosts, Jonah.
What's up, everybody?
Josh.
What's up?
And Corey.
Hey, what's going on?
I didn't forget your name. I just
didn't
know what order.
Didn't know where you were going.
Didn't know what order. Today, our main topic is going to be Spider-Man No Way Home. The movie just released over the weekend. We all had a chance to see it together, and we will discuss it now. What's going to be... we're going to start with no spoilers, so...
so we're going to start this movie. Yeah, it's going to be a movie, guys. It's going to be so enjoyable. This section of our podcast out as just non-spoiler. We're going to keep it light. So if you guys want to kind of get what our I guess...
Initial reactions.
Surface level,
surface stuff.
We're going to go non-spoiler. But I guess... my question to you guys is, how did this line up on expectations for you guys? Did it exceed? Did it meet? Did it disappoint?
So, you guys know me, Marvel hater, right? That's what you guys have labeled me.
It's your official title, actually.
If you just work the odds.
No, so I was excited for it because I love the Spider-Man movies. As people started watching it and I saw like reactions, not spoiler reactions, but people that I follow that I'm like pretty similar on our tastes, they were really liking it. So I was like, okay, this could be really good. And so when I went into it, I kind of had a high expectation of it. And it did meet that expectation for me. So it was something that I really enjoyed. Just a lot of things that happened in it and how it was done. And we'll talk about more stuff in our spoiler heavy, but it was something I really enjoyed. So yeah, to me, it was really good.
Nice. Mick, what do you think? Did it meet? Did it disappoint?
I think
did you hate it?
Definitely didn't disappoint. I didn't hate it. I think it exceeded expectations.
Oh, okay.
And my expectations were actually pretty high. So
wow.
Yeah.
That's good. Josh?
I think I'm in the same boat. I think it exceeded my expectations.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, well, I think...
Because I feel like when we looked at the trailers and we talked about them, I feel like we had kind of mixed reactions. Some of us were like, oh, we'll see. And I don't know. It didn't sound like we were like... Yo, it's going to be sick.
Well, yeah, that's why
I think the bar was lower then.
I think for me, I was excited about it, but I was like, I tempered my expectations just because I haven't.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was going to, like, if they were going to deliver.
Right.
And for me, it exceeded the bar that I had set for the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I wasn't going in like, this is going to blow my mind. This is going to be the best movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But it definitely exceeded my expectations.
Nice.
What about you, Corey?
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, obviously, it exceeded my expectations. I think that when you watch a trailer, we always talk about it, and it's like, oh, you're spoiling everything. And there are some moments in the trailer that did spoil things like we thought. And so even with that kind of that negative, because it's like what's going to come, or you have an inkling of what's going to come, even with that, it still did really well in my book. And so I think that kind of speaks to, and I think we talked about it before, where it's like, well, if you're so dependent on a spoiler defining whether or not it's a good movie, that's a weak movie. And so this movie was actually one of my favorite Marvel movies just in general, based on a lot of different things that we're going to talk about. But because it kind of stood up on its own, as a film, and so it obviously has a lot of things, more depth into it, but I think it was really good. The more I thought about it the next day, the more I wanted to almost watch it again.
Yeah,
I almost watched it again.
Oh, nice.
Can I tell you guys that? I almost went to...
No,
Go ahead.
No. Tell us that. You can't tell us that.
Do I have permission to tell you that?
You
jerk.
Don't you tell me that. But I was like, man... Like, I kind of want to go watch it again, because there's a lot of moments, there's a lot of things going on, and I kind of want to see it again, which is rare for me to want to, like, run it back, on a Marvel movie. I wasn't really like that with Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
I still really liked it, but I'm going to have to give the edge to Spider-Man.
Well, and even
this one.
When we got out of the theater, the first thing I said to you was like, that's going to be the first
Steel
MCU because I have other like the Sony stuff, the original
it's
Spider-Man
kind of a
stuff,
hybrid, but yeah.
But like the MCU, this will be the first movie that I buy in Steelbook,
Yeah,
and that's kind
crazy.
of how because to me it was like that enjoyable, and like I said, we can go into reasons later about it, but just simply put, I thought it was well done. Some of the gripes that I've had about Spider-Man in the past with Tom Holland were kind of fixed in this movie, and so I was like, okay, they have a character arc, where if I complain about people not giving Superman in Zack Snyder's Superman and Batman, like they don't let the arcs play out, and they just kind of be like, oh, well, that's dumb. If I criticize people for doing that, and then I do the same thing, like they made a story and an arc, and so if you let the character develop, I was like, all right, well, I don't know if that was their plan from the beginning or if it was just a reaction to things, but it's well done, and it worked for me, for Tom Holland's, it worked for me, and so that's where I was like, okay, I got to give credit where credit is due.
Can we have some confetti right now?
Poppers.
Yeah. For Jonah giving credit
It's
somewhere.
not in. It's not in the budget.
Hey, I give credit where credit is due. Most of the time, they don't deserve credit. That's the thing.
Okay.
In my book.
Yeah.
So I was pleasantly surprised about that. That was something that I was like, okay, this is cool, and it worked for me. So yeah, the music was great.
It's good. Yeah.
Yeah, Giacchino's soundtrack is awesome.
Yeah,
He's done good on all the Spider-Man movies, but I think this one is probably his best.
Yeah, the emotional moments when things happen, I kept being like, okay, that's one of my big complaints with Marvel is Marvel feels their music's not memorable. For me, a lot of their stuff is just kind of the same thing. I complain about their formula. They do the same thing with the music. They have a certain thing that's just like, the music's just on the nose, forgettable.
Some of them are good.
And this one was like, I was like, I would listen to that soundtrack, and that doesn't happen a lot with Marvel movies for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, I'm in the same boat as you, Corey. I came out of the movie, and it's such a long movie.
Yeah.
It's two and a half hours.
Yeah.
And there's so much that goes on in it that I had to process it a lot, like just kind of sit in it. So I've been like, last day or so.
You've been sitting in it.
I've been sitting in it, thinking about it, marinating, stewing.
Cooking. That's right.
And I think the more I think about it, the more I like it. And I think I'm the same way as you. I'm like, I want to watch it again.
Yeah, me too.
So that I can, on second viewing, I can catch more things, or maybe I'll enjoy certain things that I didn't like in the first viewing. Maybe I'll like better in the second.
Yep.
And things that I liked, maybe I'll like more.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I think like the story's really good. The character development's good. The action's awesome. There were plenty of moments that I got goosebumps.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, just even like thinking about certain scenes or whatever. I'm like, yeah, that was awesome. And for me, I think it paid off the character of Tom Holland as Spider-Man in this movie, which is pretty impressive, I think. So yeah, it was awesome overall for me.
Yeah, I think this movie answers a lot of questions I had. It kind of solves a lot of problems that I also had with him. And it's like, am I a sucker for buying into it all? And that's something we have to assess on our spoiler review. But as of right now, I did enjoy the answers they created, for this. And I think the storytelling here was good. I think it was a little slow in the beginning, but I think it was kind of warranted to kind of set everything up right, like the chess pieces. And but yeah. I think it's I recommend it for sure.
Oh yeah, I do too. Yeah, specifically with the pacing, I think out of all of the Marvel movies, it seemed like this one took its time. Like the pacing was deliberate. And I could see it being kind of a negative. For me, it wasn't that bad. But yeah, I would say the first half of the movie was a lot slower. But in terms of the story they were telling, I think it worked with that.
I think the end of the movie kind of makes up for that.
Yes.
Slow start, but slow start's not bad.
For me, it wasn't necessarily that it was a slow start. For me, I didn't like the start. So the first 15 to 20 minutes, I was like, I don't know. It felt, for me, too marvelly with a lot of the jokes and the kind of stuff that was going on to me. I was like, is this going to be the whole movie? And luckily for me, it switched like at that, like 15 to 20 minutes in. But it was just kind of like, I didn't like it to start. And so I was a little nervous, but then, like I said, once it gets going, and kind of, in my opinion, some of the Marvel tropes are kind of, they leave those and they kind of do their own thing. And that's when I started really liking it. So for me, that was, at the beginning, I was a little nervous. Because I was like, is this how the whole movie is going to be? And I know there's a lot of people that love that, that stuff. So I was a little apprehensive to begin with. But then, like I said, once it started going, I just found myself being like, I'm really liking this. And like halfway through the movie, I was like, like that's when I started being like, am I going to buy this movie? Like, am I going to buy this movie? Because I was like, it was doing such a good job with the characters and kind of, we talked about certain things in the trailers that I was like, that's going to happen. So there was stuff that was predictable. But at the same time, like Josh says, and Corey said, even though we knew certain things were going to happen, it was still like done in a way that you're like, okay, that's cool. Or you appreciated it, or you were still kind of, it was done well. So that to me was like really cool that they stuck the landing.
Yeah, that's true. And I think it's awesome. It's also kind of telling to the viewers or listeners out there that Jonah, even though he talks a lot of crap about Marvel,
member of the cult of Snyder,
he can still remove himself, and he still sticks by the standards that he has for himself. So that's also cool to kind of just like see your stance on it. That's cool. That's great. That's encouraging. And obviously I know this about you, but I'm saying to the listeners.
Yeah, I'm not a complete idiot.
Yeah, well, just partially. No. But yeah, no, I think it's a really good movie. I think it's probably the better one for 2021, if not the best one.
It's
Just the movie that released, or
Yeah, just general.
If I'm going by
that I
superhero
enjoyed.
movies-
what else? What else?
this is number 2
To
of
what?
superhero movies. Zack Snyder's Justice League.
that came out this year.
Oh
Man, that was.
I
Oh my
forgot,
gosh.
I forgot that it came out this year.
Came out in March. So that's my number 1. Then this one would be number 2, and then
Yeah,
Shang-Chi.
Black
And
Widow.
I don't consider Zack Snyder a movie, dude. It was like a season. You know what I mean? It was
That's like a TV show.
It was a TV show, but it wasn't. But like, it's in its own class for me personally. But yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, do you guys want to rate it?
Yeah, let's rate it, and
do you-
then we'll go into our spoiler discussion.
So Josh, what did you rate it out of 10?
That's a tough one. I think probably it'll end up being higher,
Okay,
but
the more you watch it,
the more I watch it, I think right now it's like at 8.7 Marvel villains.
okay, all right.
It's a lot of Marvel villains.
It is.
And Mick, what do you rate it?
Oh man, I thought we were going in order.
Nope.
I was-
Throwing you guys off.
I mean, obviously the same. The more I see it, the more I'll be able to pick it apart and see more details.
Yeah.
I really like the movie, so right now I'm going to give it. I'm going to give it a 9 point.
Whoa.
A 9.1
Whoa.
web shooters.
Nice, Jonah.
I've been going back and forth. I've been thinking about it
You're stewing on it?
between 3 numbers.
You've been sitting in
Yes, I've been sitting in it.
Cooking.
it? Nice. 3
and-
numbers. Jeez Louise.
I'm gonna give it
A 10.2.
no.
Did we rate Zack Snyder's Justice League?
We did.
What did you give
I
Zack
gave
Snyder?
Zack Snyder's Justice League a 9.5.
What?
Yes.
That is insanity to me. But okay, go ahead.
That seems low for you.
Yeah,
I know. I thought I liked like 9.9. Anyway, spit it out.
I'm trying to buy you time so you can decide, man. Come on, dude.
I actually have already decided. I'm just trying to think of what I'm going to give it. You gave it MCU villains.
Yeah,
you gave it
no
web
spoilers,
shooters.
no
That's
spoilers,
why
bro.
So I'm trying to be careful. I'll give it. 9.0 Mary Jane Watsons.
Okay.
That's what I was going to say. So I'll change it. 9.05.
Oh,
Wow. Scrolls.
scroll.
Oh.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed the movie a lot. I don't know. Actually, I don't know if mine's going to go up or down, but I do want to watch it again for sure. I think that this movie will do better as you watch it because there's a lot of details I want to look at and see and kind of pay attention to because there's a lot of stuff going on.
Well, there's also the thing for me is like there's also moments that I want to things that happen that you're like I want to see those again, experience those again.
Yeah.
Again, that has nothing to do with the movie, but we are like 0 for 4 with movies this year with annoying people watching the movie with us. Like the guy that kept like making jokes during the movie. Like it's not your stand-up routine time.
Right.
And he kept like something would happen in the movie and he'd be like say something and his buddies would laugh. I'm like, dude, no one's here to hear it. But that was annoying anyways.
Yeah. I thought he was going to be worse.
Yeah.
Like he was saying
In the
things during
trailers, he was insane.
and so I was like, okay. Luckily I blocked him out.
Me too, actually.
But
I didn't hear him.
I think that's an interesting thing we can probably talk about on another podcast is like the communal experience of a movie, right? And it's like sometimes people cheer, right? If something
Which is
cool
fine.
happens,
Yeah, that's
and it's
cool.
like so it's like that kind of experience. But yeah, you're right. When people do like make jokes, it doesn't
Make it about
take away
them.
from
When
it.
their comment, exactly it. They want the attention instead of the attention being on the movie.
Like an
Okay,
Easter
so
egg,
that's probably
an Easter egg happens. Like they mention somebody, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I know that guy. That's Thanos or whatever." You know, like no one cares what you know.
That
like
didn't actually happen. Just
that didn't actually happen.
That's Thanos' second cousin,
yeah,
Brian.
there you go.
But you know, like that kind of stuff, or like a joke happens, and then he waits for the lull. And then is like,
he's
I'm
waiting
going to
for
say
the
something
lulls.
really
Nice.
loud so that everyone hears me in the theater. It's like, dude, it's not
Yeah.
about you.
Yeah.
So, yes. Anyways,
Yeah, they put the don't speak,
yeah, don't ruin the movie.
don't use your phone thing there for a reason.
So what did you rate it again? 9 point what?
9.1
9.1
web shooters.
around 9s and then
8.7.
8.7. So we're averaging around
See that
8.9.
that was the three.
good.
It was between an 8.8 and 9. So 8.8, 8.9, 9. That's what I kept going back between those three.
Why wouldn't you just split the difference and 8.9 it?
Because 9 kept coming up in my mind. And I was like, it's a 9. It's
I
worthy
mean, it's
9.
a steelbook purchase. That's
it's gotta
at
be.
least a 9, right?
That's not
Although
true.
I
We
don't
can
know,
look back and
I have a Wonder Woman 1984 over there, so that's not a 9.
I was going to bring up these, but let's not do that. This is a 9. This
Everything
is a 9?
else is most of everything else over there is a 9. Oh, that's the Suicide Squad.
That's not a 9. That's not a 9.
That's what I thought.
Never mind.
Cool. Well, awesome. I think that stands for itself, right? That's a recommendation from Nerd Age.
Yeah.
Ourselves.
Stamp it.
Yes.
Well, it's our seal of our fart of approval. So yeah, awesome. So check it out. That's the non-spoiler part of that. So if you haven't watched it, stop watching. Go watch the movie. But if you have watched it, we're going to move on to the spoiler part of this.
Yes. So, spoiler alert.
Sound it.
Which I do think the amount of money it's made, I think most people have already seen it.
Dude, no doubt, man.
What is the?
They did really
I think
well.
people that are interested
care.
in it
Yeah.
have already seen it.
they're
Especially
like,
because there was like the question of like there's going to be spoilers, like me spoiling it at the beginning and saying
Yeah.
we weren't going to
In the first 5 minutes.
In my defense, we on the podcast we've talked about the whole time that they were going to be there. So
I'm
anyways,
just, yeah.
You just confirmed it, though.
and they've already probably knew it. Anyways,
Yeah, it doesn't
whatever.
matter.
Hey, he did that, not us.
It's going
Just
to be
so you know.
tiled like full review, so people kind of they didn't know what they're getting into with us. Also,
Well, what did it make opening weekend?
I had 260 something.
I mean, globally,
Something
it's like
globally it's at 600. It's a third biggest opening in like ever, which is crazy because people are like, well, it's a pandemic and stuff, and
the theaters are done.
but I'm just like, no, that goes to show you that people really wanted to see it. Here's the other thing it goes to show you. It's like a lot of people were like, man, Sony totally messed this up, like the advertising and all that kind of stuff, and me criticizing kind of like the give me the money shot, right?
Yeah,
there were a lot of people that were saying like all the leaks that were happening, people being like, wow, they totally butchered it. Like me, you that word.
straight butchered it.
But this just goes to show you that they did their job. Like there was so much hype for it that people were like, I don't care, I'm going to go watch it.
Yeah.
And whether you are okay with the leaks or not, that actually drove people to be more interested in it. I know that's not, you don't want people leaking scenes, but I'm like, part of that is people being so interested in it that they wanted to search out spoilers and leaks, right? So it's just kind of interesting that's
I'm curious to see Andrew Garfield's next
I hope he keeps
interview.
I hope he keeps denying it. He's like, that wasn't me.
I didn't get a call.
Yeah. I will say part of me is like longing for the days when little innocent chubby Josh would have gone into the movie theater not knowing anything and just had his face melted off.
I guess that's
you know what I mean?
So
like,
my brother, Dave, he didn't watch any trailers or anything, so he knew nothing about it.
He must have seen something online.
He said
he didn't see the Green Goblin.
He said
anywhere.
He said he didn't.
I don't.
Yeah, because.
But that's to the point. Like that would have been like
that would have been awesome.
I would buy that if that was from my dad.
Yeah, me too.
But then at the same time, I'm like, he gets on Facebook. He must have scrolled through something. Yeah, but I don't know. I think someone that knows about nerd stuff and is in those circles.
So ads are like formulated for what you are interested in based on searches, whatever you do, right? What you talk about. And so if he looks up nerd stuff and if he talks nerd stuff, I don't know if he does. There's a high likelihood that it might have been exposed to him, but maybe he doesn't.
If that's the case, that's pretty awesome. And I'm jealous because like in a perfect world, because I think Tom Holland said that Sony wanted to keep it. Sony wanted to keep one of the studios wanted to keep the villains under wraps. And that instead they were like, oh no, we're going to market them. Because part of me is like, oh, what if we just like went into this movie being like, oh, it's a Spider-Man with Doctor Strange multiverse movie, and then the villains start showing up, and then you're like, oh my gosh, what's happening? But anyway.
Yeah, and it'd have to be like teaser level, but yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
And I was going to say, can we, well, I'm kind of skipping ahead to a little bit of like the money shot. Sorry. The money shot was awesome for me, and I'm so glad that they did not put that in a trailer, because the way it happens, I could totally see that being in a trailer at the end.
They put the money shot in the trailer. They just deleted the guys.
No. We're talking about the reveal. We're talking about the reveal of when.
Oh, when Andrew Garfield shows up. Okay, yes,
and that scene was made in such a way that it could have 100% been the tagline for a trailer, and I'm so glad that they didn't do it. But anyway, I'd say let's dig in. Yeah? Let's dig in and not talk about.
Let's just we can start from.
This guy's got a list like 10 feet long.
List was for other things, but
okay.
So the start of the movie, it starts out basically where the last one left off.
Yeah,
the whole world knows that Peter is Spider-Man, that he's the guilty one, that he killed Mysterio, which was in. I thought there would be more. Maybe not more, but maybe like some Mysterio stuff in there still, but there wasn't.
Yeah,
I mean, they had the flashbacks and like references, and
I'm saying
moments,
like,
but that's about it. Yeah,
like moving forward, but the movie was so big and busy already, it really didn't need it.
Yeah, and that part was the part that I was like, like he swings down and they're like, "Are you his girlfriend? You're Spider-Man's girlfriend?" And that, "Hey, Spider-Man, hit me!" Like all that kind of stuff. I was just like. And they're swinging through. That to me was like
you didn't care for it.
No, I didn't think it felt. I don't know, like cheesy, and then he calls like Ned, and he's on. Oh, what that to me, I was just like, okay.
I didn't hate it. I wanted to get it over with.
Yes,
does that make sense? I wanted to get out of that place because I was like, I get it.
Yeah, when these villains showing up, when's the Green Goblin coming?
Yeah, it's like
yes,
I understand this, but I'm like, I want to move on to something else.
I guess
I understand it.
I feel the exact opposite, because that's something that we haven't seen in a Spider-Man movie before. Where
in a Spider-Man movie, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like that's always been a big thing about the Spider-Man character, is his secret identity, and to see like how at least in the movie, how the pedestrians and people would react to that.
Yeah, sure,
is interesting. It's interesting drama. So I actually liked that part quite a bit.
I liked it. I just wanted to move on. That's all. I just wanted it shorter. That's all I could critique.
It's not to me that happened, because yes, that's a good, because I thought it was good even when they go to the school and everyone's looking at him and stuff like that.
That was
But to me, it was how it was done, where it was like random people on the street are gonna like be asking, "Is that your girlfriend?" Like that kind of. It's just the way it was delivered. It just seemed like
just little details.
Yeah, it was just
in
like
there that kind of poked you wrong.
to me. It didn't. It wasn't executed well. That was the thing. That's where I said it was like it felt more like Marvel-y, like the girl being like, "Hey, Spider-Man, touch me!" Like and tries to take his mask off. I'm like, I don't.
A lot of little one-liners.
I don't know if it just to me it was done in a not the best way, like quality wise, execution wise. That to me is where I was like, hey.
For me, that part wasn't my favorite. Like the beginning, I think dragged a little bit. I think there was subconsciously, I was kind of in that boat of like, let's get to the good stuff. So that I think rewatching it, I might have a different opinion now because I've seen the whole movie, so I'm not like, come on, give me the money shot, as John would say. But I didn't like the interrogation scene. That was one of the things. That was the low point of the movie, I think, because it was like,
to me, it seemed too goofy.
Too goofy. Yeah. We've seen it before. Yeah. Like, oh, hey, and the guy even that was playing the interrogator was like you're pretty cheesy. A cheesy character.
Like you're trying to be the good cop, bad cop way too over the top. Right. Where it's like, we get what you're doing, but it was like,
And it's like, we've seen it before. We've seen it 100 times. And then of course Ned being like, oh, I was like talking. It's like, okay, I could have predicted that happening also.
But that's part of his character. Yeah. And showcasing him.
Then we might as well get rid of the early movie bad stuff out of the way for me. That intro part. And I also didn't like the Happy and Aunt May stuff.
Yeah.
The reason I didn't like it is because Happy is made out to be just a complete idiot. And I understand like what they're trying to do. They want it to be more humorous, and like, oh, she's attractive, he's not, like she's breaking up with him, kind of, it was just a fling. But it kind of takes away from their relationship when the stuff happens with Aunt May later. To me, it was like, if you would have done it in a better way where he's not such a buffoon, I guess, to me it would have landed more emotionally. But it was just kind of like, for the sake of humor and getting like, we got to get the jokes out of the way, let's make him be a complete idiot.
Well, I think probably the reason they did that is they don't want it to land so heavy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's probably a Marvel decision where they're like, hey, we're killing off Aunt May and Peter's already devastated. Now imagine on top of that, you have Happy, who's like, they're in a good relationship, still in a relationship, and it's like 10 times worse, right? So I think they kind of tried to lessen it. I mean, he still has a reaction to it, but I think if you would have like, it's sad. It's a sadder story, right? If she's like, they were together,
right?
They were planning on getting married.
Well, no,
I don't know.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying like be together. They could have still been breaking up, but the way they portray him in that aspect is he's just
kind
like
of a loser,
loser, clingy, like no, please don't love me. And to me, I'm like, you didn't have to go so hard that way. It could have still been like, we're still breaking up, but it's kind of like he's not groveling. So
you're Happy
doing
Stan.
the jokes.
You're Stan for Happy.
No, I just think that to me, I was just like,
Happy, bro.
I didn't like it.
Hashtag justice for Happy. That's what I'm gonna say.
That's how I've acted like every time I get dumped. So I think it's pretty realistic.
You let her come over and like stay in your apartment, basically.
Do whatever you want.
Yeah, whatever you want here.
Pretty much.
So that I can get. I think that those three things that we've talked kind of coupled.
Yeah.
The other scene that I was like. Again, probably one of the last scenes that I was like, is this going to be this way the whole time? Is when he gets to school and you've got like the principal, the other guy, and the coach. And it's like one guy's like, oh, we love you. And the other guy's like, you're a murderer. Like, they're just trying to give like the different reactions of everybody in the world. Like the people that love him, the people that are in awe of him, and the people that hate him.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like a scene that I was like, I didn't think it was very funny,
and it's
and it was just kind of too much on the nose, and too like what I said, Marvel-y.
Yeah, I think
humor.
they could have cut that. Just keep him like when he's walking into the school is really good. When he's holding hands with MJ and then going through the actual halls, I think is a good scene. But that scene, I think,
honestly,
it kind of just stopped the flow of what was going on.
What you could have done is, instead of having that like discussion right there, that awkwardness. What you could have done is you could have had like the principal working on the shrine, and then he's just walking through, and you see it on the side, and he's like awkward, like, you know what I mean? Like, you can make it less awkward and still a little bit funny, being like, oh, he's obsessed with it.
Yeah,
that's kind of funny.
I would have rather have him walk through the hallway and have people having conversations about it around him, so he hears that.
Yeah.
Instead of like, we're gonna have 3 comedians in front of you.
Right.
They're literally 3 comedians, actors, and they're all gonna like, hey, we're gonna do a little show and dance or whatever.
Well, and it was also a very stark difference because it was like everyone was dead silence, and you only hear people taking pictures.
Yeah.
And then you get hit with just them doing this jokey kind of situation, that conversation. So, yeah, I think I would have like softened it.
Yeah, that
made it more natural, I guess. But
and I think that's kind
some
of,
people are gonna like that.
Like I said, that's like probably one of the last scenes that I was like, I don't know if I'm liking this.
Yeah.
Because then after that, I think it starts picking up with the stuff he does with Doctor Strange, and that kind of stuff. Then it started just taking off for me.
Yeah.
But it did start with those.
Yeah.
More of a cringe for me when I'm like, like I don't like that.
Yeah, I think for me, like, I have some nitpicks about the movie, mostly the beginning. Some of the villains, I'm like, I didn't like where they were kind of like all jokey, like they're all trapped there and they're all basically like, I mean, I'm a bit of a scientist, you know what I mean? And that one was like, okay, like I could have done without that. But I think the thing that this movie does the best is that it was my biggest criticism of Spider-Man so far, and he didn't feel like Spider-Man.
Yes.
And so that's the one thing that, like, in Spider-Man 1 and 2, even in all the Avengers stuff, it's like he doesn't feel like the Spider-Man I know. He doesn't feel like your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And what this movie did, which I think is brilliant in what it does, is that it basically gives you the Spider-Man origin story, which I thought had already happened, right? I already thought Uncle Ben had already died. Mm-hmm. And what they did that I think was really smart is that they made Aunt May his Uncle Ben in this situation. Yeah. She delivers the line that we've heard a million times, and I think it works in that. And even for me, I don't really care for Aunt May, like this interpretation of her. I'd rather have the old lady from the Raimi Spider-Man, even though she's super cheesy.
Oh, I think she's great.
I think the whole hot Aunt May is kind of like whatever. Like, I never bought into that. But I think the moment still works for me when she dies, killed by the Green Goblin. I think mainly the music and also Tom Holland's performance in that moment is really, really strong. Yep. And then just basically, I think what they did with this movie of like kind of flipping that, and then in the end, basically saying like, hey, he's Spider-Man, basically, I think was a really smart thing to do. And it's been my biggest criticism about the Spider-Man movies up to this point. And so that's why one of the reasons why I really like this movie is because they've kind of set up, it's almost like the Spider-Man origin story I've been waiting for Tom Holland, at least.
Yeah, that to me is the biggest win for this movie. And that's, what I've always said is he feels like Spider-Man Jr., like Iron Man Jr.
Yeah.
Like everything's been given to him, the suit, everything. Right. He was kind of added into the Avengers, and so it was never a Spider-Man movie. It was all, this other stuff is going on with the Avengers, and he's got to be kind of up to speed to be a part of the Avengers. So they never really addressed the tragedy and the stuff that makes Spider-Man Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And this movie, like you said, does that with Aunt May, and actually for the first time gives him like real tragedy. That's my favorite thing about the Tobey Maguire and the Andrew Garfield ones. For me, the Andrew Garfield, Gwen Stacy death is one of the best things in any movie because of the chemistry they had and what it does to him. And I wish we would have seen more in the movies coming up. But the same thing they did with Tobey Maguire, the Uncle Ben stuff is so well done that you feel that, right? You feel he blames himself. He wants to get revenge, that kind of stuff. And what they did in this movie is they give Tom Holland finally that moment. And what was so genius about it is that the other two Spider-Man that we love are the ones that help him through the grief. And that to me is like, it expedites him becoming Spider-Man because you've got these other two Spider-Men that have gone through it. And so it makes it more believable, right? Where he can be like, I'm going through this. And then in the end of the movie, when he becomes Spider-Man and it's his own suit that he sewed and it looks like a Spider-Man suit, it's not the Iron Man suit. That to me was like, okay, you got me. Yeah. Because I've always criticized Tom Holland not feeling like Spider-Man in the other movies. And like I said in the non-spoiler, I have to go by the arc, right? You just gave me a story, it's character development. So it actually enhances the movies that came before for me, because I'm like, this is where it's leading to. So that's what I think is so genius about this movie. Yeah,
and we can finally confirm there are more Spider-Man in this movie, guys. We made it. Anyway, Corey or Mick, talk. Jonah and I will shut up.
Oh, what do we do? Flip a coin?
I mean, fight it out. Duke it out.
Go for it, Corey.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to this movie, but I guess I'll kind of address what you were talking about. I think there is a brilliancy to the writing, how they kind of address like what's been written in the past, and it's kind of like a connect the dots of all Spider-Mans. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of unfair a little bit because they're using nostalgia and they're using not only with just Spider-Man, also with Tony Stark. Like for other people who really like Tony Stark, the Avengers, like they're using all this like history, which is just so smart.
Trigger words.
That just like just pulls everything, and then it's like a reverse origin story. It's like now we're starting with Spider-Man. Like after all this stuff, he lost Tony Stark, he lost, Aunt May, now he lost literally everyone. And it's like, whoa, like it's very heavy at the end. And, as long as you buy into everything that happened in this movie, it's debatably the most, most sad ending for a Spider-Man to begin from, I guess. So I respect what Marvel did with this. Big balls, honestly, like really brave.
Spidey balls.
Sure, if you want to do that.
There's 8 of them.
Yeah, I get it. But yeah, I love the interactions with the different Spider-Men. It was just so great. I can see where, Brie was like, oh, there's a lot of fan service, and she didn't like how much fan service there was in this movie. And to that I say, I was fine with it. I think the way they did it wasn't too crazy, wasn't too cheesy. I bought into it pretty easily. I also wanted this because I love the other 2 Spider-Man. So give it to me. And they didn't disrespect the characters. If anything, they wrote them really well.
Yeah.
And the bad guys, I think there might be a little bit of debate on Electro,
the Lizard,
and Dr. Connors. Maybe not so great on those guys, but the ones that mattered, like the main characters, man, Willem Dafoe knocked it out of the park. Huge ups to this guy. He destroyed it. You can tell that the main characters here who were kind of revisiting their old characters, you could they didn't phone it in. They killed it. Yeah. They brought their A game, and it's super evident. I loved Willem Dafoe, actually. He made this movie really good for me. I thought it was a really brave thing to do, to expand all the possibilities. It was just holy moly. You basically just made all the other Spider-Man movies canon in Marvel. And it's that's nuts. That seems really insane to me. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. It was quite the trip. There are some things I didn't like, though. I can see where people wouldn't like this, or they get kind of caught up on it. I could see the whole spell logistics of everything. This spell that he messes up, and then the spell he does to fix it. It's kind of weird to me. I bought into it, but so the spell that messes up is he's I want people not to know that I'm Spider-Man. And it's okay, well, everyone's going to forget. Okay, well, actually, I want some other people to remember, my loved ones and stuff like that. And so he overcomplicates it, right? And then they say, okay, the only way to fix this as it's going haywire is to do this blanket. Everyone needs to forget who you are. And I was shouldn't it just be that they should forget that he's Spider-Man? like, why is it this over encompassing neck? It's like they it's like they overdid it. You know what I mean? So that's the only part where I was like, it makes for good drama. You know, it makes for good storytelling. It's a lot more dramatic in that moment. But I was like, it's magic, whatever. Like, I didn't get caught up on it, but I could see where people get caught up a little bit on it. But man, you know, the multiverse, like that introduction, I like this way they're kind of introducing the multiverse. The Doctor Strange movie is kind of scary to me a little bit because I'm like, I don't even know what to expect. But with this, it's like, okay, we know exactly where they come from. We know these characters. They're familiar. It's nostalgic. And so I buy into this. But it's branching. It's starting to branch like infinitely. And so it's like Marvel is just setting them up to be able to do whatever they want. So, I mean, as far as like renewability for writing movies, this is, I mean, a really good plan. I'm just concerned on like to what end. Yeah. So, but I love the reveals like you were talking about. Tobey Maguire is my boy. Andrew Garfield's also super cool. I love how like I feel bad for Andrew Garfield because like he did only 2 movies. They cut him short. He didn't get to complete his trilogy, which they had planned on. And it's like they get to addressed his like issues with Gwen Stacy. That was kind of a cool moment. I actually did like that where he's the one who saved MJ. But yeah, I really enjoyed the Spider-Man. That was cool. I love the combat was good too. Yeah, I will say the combat was a highlight for me. One of the notable goosebump moments was like when after they were like, oh, we're running into each other, and they had this hard time like fighting together, and they're like, well, I only fight by myself, and it's like, yeah, that makes sense. And then Tom Holland's like, well, I fight part of a team, and this is how you do it. We got to focus on one guy. And then, like, that moment of them, like, swinging and then, like, them comboing, like, webs.
I like how he webs 2 of them and then flings them. That's pretty sweet.
Sick. Yeah. I really enjoyed that combat scene right there. That was really fun.
We should put that in the trailer.
Yeah, exactly.
But all they have to do is just, like, green screen the Spider-Man out.
Right, exactly. They're like, what did he web?
What do you guys think about the moment where they're like kind of they're like, oh, how do you what that spider webs comes out of you? And they're like, pretty sweet. What?
Yeah. I thought it was funny because
it wasn't weird.
I think it'd be weird if they didn't say something about it because it's so like it's so different from the other 2 Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that they had something there.
That was kind of funny.
Yeah, I think I heard people describe this movie as like the next Endgame, and I can
like for Spider-Man,
for Spider-Man, and I can definitely Spider-Man's Endgame, and I can definitely see why because so much has changed for his character specifically, and just the impact of it all is it literally covered the whole world.
Yeah,
so, definitely a big movie.
I think that this is like the first. For me, at least, the first movie that's really like let Tom Holland actually like act.
Yeah.
Like everything else has been like highlighting other people, or it's like it's a means to an end. But like this one's like this movie was written for him to like show us why we should care about his Spider-Man.
Yeah,
it was his best. Actually.
This is the first time that I actually care about him and like his Spider-Man, and I actually like respect it.
Yeah, agreed.
Because we finally have done an origin story. Like that we talked about, like, you mentioned it. We haven't seen an origin story from him. Like, it was kind of a joke. We didn't like that he was Iron Man Jr. and it was like leaning on Iron Man and Stark and other people. And it's like, this is the first time that we get to see him actually act on his own.
Yeah, for sure. Like that from when Aunt May dies to him, that scene on the roof where it's pouring rain, like it's shot awesome. There's a big screen of J. Jonah Jameson, basically saying what Spider-Man thinks. It's like, or what he's thinking right now. It's like everyone that's around him dies. He's basically he's a cancer to everyone that's around him. And I think that's such like an important part to like Peter's like origin story is like that idea of like everyone around me will die because of me, kind of a thing. So that was really strong. And then going straight into, the real reveal with Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, and then that scene on the roof is awesome. Like when they come down, that,
it it was almost framed exactly how the Into the Spider-Verse, how
Yeah.
you see, the noir Spider.
Yeah, come down.
I thought it was really cool.
It's actually framed exactly how Zack Snyder did Batman on the.
There wasn't that stupid tarp float flying around though.
So Zack Snyder is the blueprint.
But yeah, that scene, I think what they did with Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire in this, like giving them a chance to redeem themselves. Like, so Andrew Garfield gets to save MJ.
Yeah.
And then Tobey Maguire gets to save Norman Osborn because
Yes.
because his biggest regret.
He saves Norman and he saves Peter in that moment.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And it's the same scene with, Tom Holland's going to kill him with the glider, which is the same way that Green Goblin died because of, in the first Spider-Man movie, and he stops him from doing that. So I think that what they did with that and like just giving them more depth, I think is just awesome. To what kind of Bree said about the nostalgia thing, I think it is a lot of nostalgia, but I think what this movie does right is it's not just for like, hey, you recognize Tobey Maguire? Yeah. He's in this movie. They're actually driving the plot, and they're supporting cast members of the movie. It's not just like they didn't just show up to fight in the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They actually were a driving force to mold Tom Holland's Spider-Man into Spider-Man and basically help him through the darkest, night of his life, which they've all experienced. And I know we've seen that. It did kind of remind me of Into the Spider-Verse, where Spider-Man's like, for me, it was my Uncle Benjamin. So I think if this Into the Spider-Verse hadn't come before, this would have probably like blown my mind 10 times more, but it was pretty similar. But I think they did an awesome job. And I think Andrew Garfield steals the show, guys.
Yeah. I was going to say, so I think I've said before multiple times on our podcast that Tobey Maguire is my favorite Spider-Man. But I will say, and Andrew Garfield is probably my least favorite, but I will say in this movie, I think Andrew Garfield made me really like his portrayal of the character. I think this was his best portrayal of the character by far. I think he got to do the most in this movie, which is funny because it's not like his Spider-Man movie, but just in terms of how he talks about how he's dealing with just the aftermath of losing Gwen Stacy, how he stopped pulling his punches, how he got like just more, violent and gruesome, more cruel.
Yeah. Like a Zack Snyder
Batman. Oh, so you're saying they're copying?
If Zack Snyder directed a Spider-Man movie, it would be The Amazing Spider-Man 3 with Andrew Garfield killing people
with guns.
He's shooting them. He's flinging the manholes, cutting them their heads off.
See, keep going.
But yeah, I was just going to say that. I think Andrew, like you said, I think he kind of stole the show with those three. I still think that the movie did a great job at, like you said, giving each Spider-Man their own kind of cool thing to do. But yeah, this it made me think a little bit more about Andrew Garfield's portrayal as the character.
I don't think there's for me, it's not even close that Andrew Garfield is the best one. And I'm not saying
in this movie or in general.
I'm saying in this movie and in general.
We're not going to talk about we're not going to talk general. We're talking about just this movie.
Well, in this movie, he's, to me, it's just like his acting. Tom Holland gets a little up there with his acting, but to me, Andrew Garfield is just a way better actor than both Tom Holland and Tobey Maguire. Just every scene he's in, he nails. And for me, I'm just not like, I'm invested in what he's doing. And when it's a comedic one, I laugh at his deliveries. When it's emotional, when it's supposed to be,
funny.
When it's supposed to be
comedic, I laugh every time.
When it's emotional, I like buy it.
I cry.
And even that scene where he saves Mary Jane, he doesn't say anything. You can just read it all in his face and his eyes. And to me, that's like,
this is acting, guys. This is acting.
It is.
And to hop off the same thing that you're saying, I'll say that, first of all, great writing. They gave the opportunity for him to do that, right? He has that moment and he acted his butt off and he just killed it. I also think that Tobey Maguire did a really good job as well.
Yeah.
Doing and not saying, and like you could see things in his eyes, like kind of like a dad almost, like
a youth.
Like honest. I think he did really good too.
Yeah.
Like the way he would just like his emotions and the way he'd look and the things he would say were just like very impactful. And I think they both killed it.
Well, and I think that's the cool thing is each of the Spider-Man had something unique to do.
Yeah.
And unique to have a story told about them. Like we said, Andrew Garfield, he kind of was dealing with after Gwen Stacy and redeeming himself from that. Toby, he had more of a, finish with the third Spider-Man. So he just had a different story to be told about him. And then, of course, Tom Holland with all of his stuff. But
yeah, Toby still gets his moment with Doc Ock, which was cool too.
Yep.
That kind of like relationship. That was cool.
Man, isn't that effed up though? Kind of like you solve his problem, but he's gonna die anyway.
Well, I mean, we don't know what happens when they go back at this point.
Yeah,
because
he knew what Peter Parker looked like.
They get pulled out right before they die. All of them got pulled out right before they die.
Right, and so that moment where he has Spider-Man by the neck,
because he
takes his mask off. That's when he finds him out. And at that point, the energy ball, whatever that experiment thing, the infinite energy thing, he had to sacrifice himself to stop it. Right? He has to do it to not blow up New York City.
Theoretically, yeah.
But I think he still dies.
It's kind of sad.
No one dies. No one dies.
Everything changes.
Yeah, Andrew Garfield's coming back. He's going to be in the Sony Spider-Verse.
I didn't say he was going to die. I'm just saying Dr. Octavius, he turned good even in the movie.
Out of all of them, he's the one that's probably most likely going to die.
I just feel bad for him because I'm like, man, all these other guys get redeemed. And it's like, he's kind of like a Darth Vader situation where he's like, he turns to the light side, even though
at the end,
he was mind controlled, but like, and then dies.
Well, that's the other thing too. Like, technically, he does turn good at the end of Spider-Man 2 anyway, also. So it's kind of one of those.
So Norman, like right when he turns good, he still gets stabbed.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Stabbed by the glider.
No way.
Willem Dafoe was awesome in this movie. Also,
I think it was really smart to make him kind of the centric villain because he's so good.
Yeah, and then I think taking the mask off, just letting him do his thing with his crazy looking face, is
those teeth.
Like when Spider-Man's punching him and he's just like laughing, that's pretty crazy. Yeah. And his costume was cool too. We almost got like kind of like the Hobgoblin looking hoodie.
So Christopher Nolan is the blueprint because that's what Heath Ledger they did. He's laughing.
Anyone who laughs
while getting punched in the face.
You want to talk more about the villains? So one thing that kind of confused me, and maybe I just totally missed it, but so Sandman in the beginning was like, well, let's go back. We're not supposed to be here. And they had their like resolution at the end of Spider-Man 3.
Right.
And everything was fine. But then at a certain point, Sandman was like, nope, I am a bad guy. I'm going to fight the Spider-Man. Did I miss something?
No, he's trying to get the thing from Spider-Man to go back.
Yeah.
That's why because he's like, they're going to screw this up for me. And he's trying to be like, I'm getting this stuff. So it looked like they were fighting together, but he was just trying to, because remember, he says something to him. I can't remember what he says, but he's like,
I have a daughter.
Yeah. He's like, leave him alone. Like they've made their choices and he's just trying to he doesn't want to be like sitting around while they're experimenting and the Green Goblin is throwing everything.
Yeah. That's one of those things. Like when I see the movie again, I think that'll be a little more clear. Cause for me, it was just like, wait, weren't you just kind of not evil?
Yeah.
But motive was hard to track.
Right.
Yeah. The other villain that I was like, didn't make sense to me, but you're just going to go with it, is Electro.
Yeah.
Because he comes out and now he's super cool.
Yeah.
And I was
like,
his character wasn't consistent. It's like now that your like teeth are fixed, it doesn't fix your whole personality.
He got his hairline fixed too.
Like
right?
that to me is like,
he got a little confidence.
Just because you look cool doesn't mean like you were a goofy guy your whole life. Your mom like hated you, like all this stuff. Like they set this whole thing up where he's just like in that one movie, and now he's in this one. He's like, I'm Jamie Foxx now.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I'm like, so I get it because you wanted him to be that way, but to me, it's like if he gets pulled out right before he dies, he wouldn't change into like this suave guy.
Right.
Well, I mean, he didn't change. I agree with you, but he didn't change like directly into that guy. He was like the energy thing.
Yeah, but when he comes in, when they bring him in, it shows him fix his teeth. So like when he comes in to whatever this universe, like he completely like changes his face and stuff like that. But even I think Jonah's right though, his attitude is completely different.
Oh no, yeah.
So that's the thing. It doesn't really make sense. And all he does to explain it is like
the energy is different here.
I like it here.
Yeah,
I like the energy.
I mean, I think that
makes me act like Jamie Foxx.
That reasoning is kind of poor. I think the design of him is.
Oh, the design is better.
Yeah,
that to me is the design is better. But if you're going to be if Willem Dafoe is the same character, Doc Ock is the same character, Sandman is the same character, and then Electro is like a completely different person, it's kind of like
he's really
that
the
doesn't
only
make
one
sense.
that's not the same. At all.
I guarantee you, Jamie Foxx was like, I'm going to come back and do this movie, but I'm going to be freaking mother effing Jamie Foxx. I'm not going to be that loser.
I don't want to comb over again.
And a receding hairline.
Yeah, I mean, I've never gotten huge, amazing electric powers and be turned into pure energy before, so it might boost your confidence.
A little bit, yeah.
Not to that point, though.
How would you know?
Even just the way he talks, he doesn't stammer anymore.
Yeah.
He's a completely different character.
Yeah.
Probably also didn't want like a bunch of blue makeup on him.
That's well, it was all CGI, so.
Well, there was blue makeup. Yeah. Enhanced by CGI, but yes.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple, The
Lizard
villains,
was kind of.
It gets tough when you put so many villains in, and then it's like they have to have their little spotlights here and there, and so you're gonna find little issues here and there, because they're here to like feed the story, and so even though William Dafoe's Green Goblin really like drove it home, the other guys have to kind of help lift it and keep it going. So. Yeah, I kind of like allow those things. Yeah, I don't really care too much.
I wanted Eddie Brock in there.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I was like, Lizard was just there for like jokes because they basically said like, oh, the dinosaur can talk like that. Yeah, he was there for. He was left in the truck when they were doing all this stuff. He gets out. He was just kind of like, hey, there's this villain, which is fine. If you had more of a backstory with him and more scenes, it would be like 20 more minutes. So if they're going to cut one villain, that's the one you cut. But yeah, it was kind of like maybe they shouldn't have brought the Lizard back. Like, I don't think he brought anything to the movie.
He didn't. I don't think so.
So I was like, you could have just been with the three guys, and still have, or I mean, four guys. Sandman.
I know they should have.
Paul Giamatti.
So to me, it's like, that was just one that was like, eh.
Yeah, he was the weakest, I think.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I think some people, I don't have an issue with this, but I'm just going to play kind of devil's advocate. I think some people, I'll bring up a hypothetical to you guys. Do you guys think that it was quite convenient that all of a sudden everyone's got the solves to every problem, and within like a couple hours they solve every villain's problem?
Yeah, that was
instantly.
What do you mean?
I have the serum for Goblin. I have the serum for Lizard Man. I can transfer the energy for Electro and solve him. And then
and it's all because of it was in Happy's apartment.
Yeah,
from stolen Stark stuff.
To me, it wasn't really. I didn't see it that way because each of them already knew how to deal with them. Like,
they already
Andrew Garfield knew how to switch Lizard because he already did that.
Right.
Toby, I guess Toby didn't do
Toby's
that.
is the only one that's like, he's like, I've been thinking about it a long time. So that's the only one.
But that includes Sandman. That includes Green Goblin and Doc Ock. Like, so, and then they had no way to fix Electro. Like, to me, it's like, if they knew how the serum, I do agree with you. If they did have the serum for the Lizard guy, which was already done, you got four other guys, and in the course of 3 hours, you figure it all out. That to me was just a way for them to like move the plot along.
Yes,
and be like, hey, don't think about it too much because it doesn't make sense. I agree with that because it was kind of like you managed to do that.
It's convenient.
Over the course of 2 hours.
And I think people could also say, oh, this is a way to kind of like showcase how intellectual they are. And it was also kind of a cool way for them to be like, well, this Spider-Man's more prone to like math, like Tom Holland. This one's more prone to chemistry. You know what I mean? And like they have kind of their own little specialities, which is cool. I thought that was cool. But that's just something that I saw could be something that people cared about. It's like, well, that was very convenient.
To
me,
the whole movie's convenient. It's convenient that Andrew Garfield showed up. You know what I mean? Like at that point, I'm like, I think there was enough there that I could buy. I mean, obviously, any movie, it's like, oh, really? You finished that in under 3 hours to figure all that out? So for me, it didn't bother me.
Yeah, me neither.
I think there was enough. And I think, to your point, it does showcase a little bit more of like, the type of like, oh, we're working on this.
And having them
Andrew
work
Garfield
together
has the lab coat on, that kind of stuff. So it didn't really bother me.
Yeah. What about both Tobey Maguire and Tom Holland near immortal, or at least unfazed by mortal strikes? So Tom Holland got shot in the shoulder. He has no issues with his shoulder.
Shoulder shot. Anyone can
tank a shoulder shot.
Anyone could get that off.
Isn't there that one place where you can shoot right here and it doesn't
straight through?
Yeah, so straight through.
Happens in every movie.
We all know spiders are super healing. Right,
yeah.
Right. He just webs it up. The other thing was, but they did address it. But Tobey Maguire tanking a stabbing in the back.
To me, that was probably the thing that made the least amount of sense in the whole movie.
Okay. He was like, "You're in a lot of pain." He's like, "Yeah, I am."
Yeah. To me, it was like, if you're gonna do that, have a bigger consequence or any consequence after that. Like, hey, this guy's gonna die, or it's something. It just seemed like such a weird thing to happen, and then nothing really
comes
came
of it. Yeah,
like it was just like if Willem Dafoe, Green Goblin, and Spider-Man got stabbed and then didn't die.
Conspiracy theory time. I think they changed the ending.
Well,
I think originally,
but
they had him
take that out. Take that scene
actually
out.
die.
No,
actually,
I think they had him actually die, and he was going to be the sacrifice. And what I think they are doing now is they're like, people really want to see these guys, and I think they're going to continue stuff with Andrew Garfield, and I think they're going to have Tobey Maguire come back and do more Spider-Man stuff.
Tobey Maguire's like,
all right,
listen, guys, I haven't acted in a movie since like 2014. I need some paycheck.
Yeah, I really think they started getting like word of mouth of like people that have seen it in studios and stuff, and being like, wait, and then feeling out with Andrew, like Tobey Maguire, hey, would you be willing to do more? And he's like, sure. After the experience, that I think they left the scene in.
You stay
alive. They left the scene in where he gets stabbed because they'd already filmed it, and where Green Goblin was like, "What have I done?" And that whole thing where he's about to die. Yeah. And then I just think they ended it with showing them going back.
I mean, I think
it'd be easy to do.
I think you're absolutely right. I just think that was just pointless.
Yeah.
Like if that's the case, then take that out. You don't need it in there.
I
liked it.
I think even though there wasn't like an end to it, it was still there. Like it was still a good moment.
I thought it was good because it showed that he was like, he kind of throughout the movie, he was acting as the father figure, and he was like, you can bear this. Like, we've done it. We've been there. And he was leading by example. And so that was his moment of leading by example and being like, no, don't do it. And then his actions might have gotten him killed. Didn't. But still, it's that self-sacrifice acting that way and being like, this is how you do it.
Yes.
This is a Spider-Man.
This is how you do it.
And on top of that, it gives a moment for Tom Holland. So it would have been really easy for Tom Holland to see that moment. He stops him. He accepts it. He gets stabbed. And then Tom will be like, see, it happened again. I should kill this. But instead of that, Andrew Garfield sends the serum and he doesn't kill him. Even after he sees him stab Tobey Maguire, he still gives him with the serum, which gives you the moment where he's like, Tom Holland understood what the right thing to do was.
It's like when you're in a blind rage, right? And you have to be broken out of it. You have to be shocked out of it. That was the shock
he needed. It's like a spray bottle.
Yeah.
Sprayed him in the face.
Like a cat, yeah. Cat's like mauling someone, and you had to wake him up real quick and just break his... Yeah. And that was that moment. I actually liked it a lot.
I think they would have they could have they could have just fixed it with if they had Andrew Garfield web his stab wound up,
or just like something, because
stop the bleeding. Well, let's just assume that he did that because he's not an idiot,
right?
Well, sure, but I mean the fact that you see Tobey Maguire's reaction to it. He gets stabbed in the back. He falls to the ground. It's like, oh, is he going to die? What's going to happen? Like, this seems really serious. And then it's like, oh, my back hurts.
Yeah. I think,
But he said,
To me,
I've gotten stabbed
everything
before.
else, yeah, I know, but everything else about that scene totally works. Stopping it, leading by example.
that immediately heals him. If you just say, that's happened to me before, it automatically heals it.
To me, that
been
part
stabbed a lot.
was just weird.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do actually like your explanation of it being like, oh, it's like it gives Tom Holland a good moment, because it's kind of it's the theme of the whole movie, right? Is Aunt May saying, we help people, we do these things because it's the right thing to do, instead of like, because it kind of echoes what's happened in the other movies. It's like, oh, it's not my policy, not my problem, kind of a thing. So I think you're right. Like, it gives him Tom Holland the opportunity to be like, hey, he stabbed, Tobey Maguire, but I'm still gonna I could murder him now that he's gonna drop the glider, but I'm gonna choose to do the right thing and help this person because that's the right thing to do. So yeah,
because he's leading.
And you see that face when Andrew Garfield gives him the thing and he stabs him. Like, there's a sense of relief from Andrew Garfield that he did the right thing.
Right.
Like, it's shown there in those scenes.
So yeah, okay. I think I like that better, but I do agree. Like, the resolution of that just being like,
yeah, I guess to me, like what you're all saying, it makes sense, but have the impact of what happens to Tobey Maguire be bigger.
They
have more of a consequence there.
He should have gone back, and then it goes back to where he is in his universe, and he just like falls.
He just bleeds out. He just bleeds out.
laying on his bed.
Oh man, that's the post.
Kristen Dunst comes in, and she's like, "What happened?"
Oh my gosh,
it's a long story.
He goes, I've been stabbed many times before.
Yeah.
Speaking of the back stuff, his back scene was pretty funny.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
So he was like, what did he say? Oh yeah,
They're both stretching out.
Yeah, he's stretching out before the fight, and he's like, "Oh, you get the swinging back issues." Yeah, that was pretty.
Yeah,
funny.
I think all of them had really good chemistry with each other. I think it felt right for them to be acting.
And the scene where Andrew Garfield comes in, and they're like, "Are you Spider?" And he like hangs on the wall, and they're like, "Crawl around." He's like, "Really? This isn't enough?" That was really good, and his delivery was really good.
Yeah.
The grandma's like, "Can you clean the cobweb?" All right.
Yeah,
But I love how both of them entering that scene are different. Like, Andrew comes in as Spider-Man because that's who he is. Like, he was saying, like, he's more a brutal Spider-Man, and so I think he's living more behind the Spider-Man mantle, whereas Tobey comes in as Peter Parker, but still as Spider-Man. So it seems like he has more of his life figured out and can balance being Spider-Man and Peter. I think that was kind of a subtle way to say that a little bit.
Yeah,
more.
I think it's cool because they did kind of a symbolic, or I guess more of a literal representation of like the lifespan of a Spider-Man, and he's like the dad because he's the oldest, and he's got the experience. He's been there. And he can give you that advice, like a dad can, because he's lived through it. He knows what it's like to go through your shoes. And then Andrew Garfield's like mid,
right?
Like mid-20s, like he's still struggling. He's right mid through all the heck and all the hell, and all the chaos. And it's just cool to kind of see how he looks up to them. And, you see at the end where he's like, "I love you guys," and like hugs them before the fight, I think it was, or at the end.
After.
And it was just so
after he got stabbed in the back.
It was just so cool to see how
while he's bleeding out.
Just like seeing like they're part of a brotherhood, and like what it means to be part of a brotherhood, and identify with that, and kind of like looking up to someone, and I those parts is what kind of won me over for this movie, is because with Tom Holland, I just didn't relate to him, like the way, and maybe it's more of like maybe because I'm older and I'm not going to high school currently, you know what I mean? I don't know what the current high school's like. And so maybe I just don't identify with that childhood that he has. But that moment was what I really enjoyed, and I identified with. But yeah, I guess we should kind of finish up with like the last part of this, I think, which is the ending. We should just kind of say our last thoughts on like, so they did a spell that like put him in this situation. What do you guys think about how they did that ending and how it set us up for the future?
I I will say I thought it was good that, he has to make that choice of like, at first when he goes to do the spell, he's like, oh, but I still want my girlfriend to know, and I still want Aunt May to know, and my friends to know. So in that moment when Doctor Strange says, everyone's gonna forget who you are. I thought that was really cool because even the whole aspect of like, he even mentions to the other Spider guys.
Well, it was even Spider-Man's idea. He was like,
right.
well, if we just do this, it'll solve it, right? He's like, yeah.
Yeah, and so
But you know what that means?
He even mentions like, oh, I went up to space and I fought this alien. Like, he's kind of like, his whole character revolves around what he's done with the Avengers, and for the fact that not even the Avengers are going to remember what he did, the world's not going to remember that he saved the world. That I thought that's an interesting way to make the stakes like actually matter, where everything you've done is gone. Aunt May's gone. She's not going to remember you. Yeah. And then for them to make that decision where dead. He's kind of a reset of where like he's now on his own now, I think is really cool. And I like that they did that. Yeah. The other thing I'll say is missed opportunity for him to have his apartment and the guy say rent's due and to not have the guy from Spider-Man to be there.
Yeah, that's too bad.
I was like, God, that guy should have been that guy.
Would have been great.
You got J.K. Simmons,
You'll
right?
get this rent when you when you fix this damn car.
So, but I liked it, and then him making that choice when he sees MJ, and being like, no, that to me is like that's Spider-Man,
because he totally could have done it.
Yeah,
he could have explained it. She would have had a little bit of like, she would have been like, oh, this is weird, but he knows a lot about me, and this is starting to make sense. And then he could just prove that he's Spider-Man, and then
which he will in the next movies.
Yeah, exactly.
But for now,
but it was good.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
What do you think?
Like that? No. To me, that's what makes Spider-Man to me, is making those hard choices and kind of taking the L on things to make
great power to make every
great
responsibility.
Exactly. Exactly. So like at the end of the first Spider-Man, rejects Mary Jane because he wants to be the better guy or the bigger man, and like
more responsible.
Put responsibilities first. And to me, that's one of my problems with the Andrew Garfield first movie is he doesn't do that. Right. But him doing that in this movie, I think was the right choice for him to make, and for him to feel more like Spider-Man to me. Yeah. I don't think the spell didn't feel like too convenient or, oh, this wraps up everything. Yeah. Like that was easy. It didn't feel like that to me at all.
Sweet.
So yeah.
Josh, what about you?
Ending. At the ending, I think it wrapped it up perfectly. Like seeing him sew his, he made his own suit is like one of those things that's like,
it felt more like
awesome.
the Spider-Man PS4 type deal to me.
Yeah, definitely. So like, just having him do that, he's out on his own. Missed opportunity to not have the three Aunt Mays fighting the Green Goblin. That's my opinion.
I didn't even think about that.
I know, they would have been sick.
They all have umbrellas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, they were going to make the Aunt May movie.
Have you seen there's an actual, the leak that came out with Andrew Garfield holding on to the railing, where they have one where it's the Aunt May from Tobey Maguire and just her head on there, and they're like, oh man, this would have been so cool, and she's like in the Spidey suit. I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah. But overall, it gets me excited for where this character's going, because like we said before, it's like, okay, he's Spider-Man now, so I'm excited to see like where he goes from there. So yeah, I think the ending was good, and I'm glad they didn't. I thought they were gonna do like it reminded me of Fantastic Beasts, where like everyone forgets everything, but then the girl comes into the bakery and then he remembers. So I thought they were gonna do that, but I'm glad that they made the decision to at least delay that one more movie.
Guns, at least for
until the next
movie.
I hope that like the next movie he doesn't do it like he does at the end. You know what I mean? Because we need to let this marinate, and like we need to see it like play out all the way. Yeah. I love it. I love the way they ended it. I love that his suit, like when I was looking at it, and I mentioned this right after the movie, I was like, it looked like a fusion of all their suits, and it was like he was inspired by the other guy.
Mm-hmm. Brighter colors.
It had Toby's icon. It had like Andrew's eyes, and then a more bright color, which is more comic accurate. It was just cool. Like I love seeing that. And it just goes to show like how much he learned from them, and it represents his growth as a character and as a superhero, and his where we're going next. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
Well, I was going to say the biggest part of that too is just the fact that he is on his own. He's not relying on, Stark tech anymore. It's like, it's him and some clothing.
Well, here's the problem. Guys. Peter Parker doesn't exist in this universe. How's that guy open up a bank account? Just saying.
Here's a question for you guys.
We don't want to go into this, dude.
What are the chances?
I ignored it.
What are the chances that Spider-Man shows up in the season finale of Hawkeye? Because
high.
Because he swings by the tree and it's
snowy.
there. It's snowy. It's Christmas time. That takes place. And then in the last episode of Hawkeye, one of the characters says, "I want to visit the updated Statue of Liberty," which is where they fight. Where she has Statue of Liberty now has the shield.
Gosh.
So she's there on construction on it. So it takes place at the same time. What are the chances Kingpin showing up? He's a Spider-Man villain.
Daredevil's.
That's what I was going to say. We didn't even mention Daredevil.
So
who's Charlie Cox from the Netflix show.
Which John Campea spoiled, idiot.
Yeah. Well, he spoiled a lot of things.
So
did he really? I never saw that.
That's the picture he dropped. Yeah. And he watercolor marked it and he said, "This isn't real."
It's not real.
And it was like, yes, you spoiled that.
He dropped that and like the three Spider-Men
like standing together. And he's like, this is just bad Photoshop. And like, then why do you? He's like, I've been sharing bad Photoshop all the time. I was like, why did you watermark those? Those are the only ones you watermarked. Everything else you didn't.
Yeah, that's dumb.
Because you put John Campea show on it. It's like, dude, you're garbage.
Yikes.
Anyways,
glad I didn't see it.
So cool. I think that about wraps it up. We could go on and on about it, but I think we'll wrap it up. Yeah. So that was our full review of Spider-Man No Way Home. Awesome movie. I really enjoyed it a lot. What a good way to end off 2021.
Definitely the best out of the trilogy.
By far. So I hope it sets up maybe possible Andrew Garfield third.
I think he's coming back.
I'd love that.
That'd be sweet.
Maybe youth pastor Tobey Maguire. Maybe spin-off.
That was a pretty funny line.
That was pretty good, man. But yeah, if you guys like this, go ahead and make sure you guys like and subscribe, and I guess we'll see you guys in the next one.
See you later.
See you.
Bye.